I let a wheel decide my fate for the fresh start of Path of Exile Mirage League, and Lady Luck clearly has a grudge against me. Divine Retribution Juggernaut. It's a build that literally requires me to get punched in the face before I can cast a single spell within a 2-second window that has a 5-second cooldown. It's as awful as it sounds, but hey, if the wheel wants me to be a Divine Karui punching bag, I'm going to be the toughest punching bag Rayclast has ever seen. So I create my character, give him the best name I can think of, and the block nest is what? He started it. Journey through Rayclast begins. Now my goal for this run is rather straightforward. Beat the game. Now what exactly does that mean? Well, in my opinion, beating Path of Exile kind of means two things. One, I gotta beat the campaign and reach the endgame, I think that much is a given, and two, I gotta obtain all 4 Void Stones in the endgame, and in case you haven't kept up, the endgame got a massive revamp this league, so I'm gonna have to figure it all out as I go. With Hillock out of the way, I head into Lionized Watch with one thing on my mind. Pathing straight to Glancing Blows to double my block chance and grabbing my first retaliation skill after smashing some Roa eggs and making a delicious omelet for Tarkly, Crushing Fist. Crushing Fist is a slam attack that delivers a massive blow to enemies in front of me, using my weapon's damage as the base, but it only becomes available to cast after having blocked a hit. So naturally, I equip a shield I bought from Tarkly for that innate 24% chance to block, and then test it out against Hailrake in the Tidal Island. As you can see, Crushing Fist deals some serious damage, but only when I get to actually use it. My first priority with the build is absolutely going to be to get more block chance so that I can use Crushing Fist and eventually Divine Retribution much more consistently. I enter a random Mirage I encounter and come out with a Blackheart Iron Ring. I slap that ring on for some chaos damage and a random shield I found on the floor and use them to bully Brutus. I'm rewarded with the Enduring Cry skill, which lets me yell at nearby enemies, taunting them to give me a good smack while also giving me some endurance charges and a bit of life regen in the process. I reach level 15, the first big milestone for the build, because it lets me grab the most important keystone, Glancing Blows. As mentioned a little bit earlier, this node doubles my chance to block, going from 32 to 64, which is massive in terms of how often I'll be blocking now. Unfortunately, it comes with a downside in that I'll be taking 65% of a hit's damage when I block instead of none, but hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. And who better to test our new Glancing Blows against than the final boss of Act 1, Merveille. I am now blocking the majority of her sword attacks, although all those ice shards she shoots out actually count as spells, not attacks, and I don't have any spell block yet, but it's definitely on my to-do list. I finish her off with one final Crushing Fist to the face and head into Act 2. First things first, I visit the Chamber of Sins where I grab the Baleful Gem from a Ghosted Fidelitas, which still no idea what this gem actually does, and head back to town where I grab 2 new buff skills, Herald of Ash and Tempest Shield. I slap Herald of Ash on for the explosions and tuck Tempest Shield into my pockets until I can get enough intelligence to actually read the gem. I take care of some bandits, choose to save Alira, and literally one-shot the bone guy over in the crypt thanks to this awesome axe upgrade I made with a lucky essence which doubled my damage. I grab the retaliation wheel next to Glancing Blows since we're in the area, and also grab the 40% reduced cost of retaliation skills to help with any mana issues I anticipate running into. I 2-shot the Weaver, get another new shield that puts me at 74% chance to block now, and wrap things up with the boss of Act 2, the Val Oversoul. Thank God for Shield Crush, because this guy and his little construct buddies absolutely refuse to hit me with attacks. With the Oversoul no longer in the way and feeling rather tanky, I make my way to Act 3. Act 3 starts out strong, and by that I mean quite the opposite. You see, I failed the Blight tutorial. This doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but it does showcase just how clunky this build really is. I am really relying on monsters choosing to hit me, and I'm severely punished whenever monsters have better things to do. On the plus side, I did get my first Chaos Orb from this failed Blight, so it ain't all bad. Not much later, I get a second Chaos Orb in another one of those Mirages, and then very slowly take down Piety. I identify this slick mace upgrade I picked up on the way over to her, once again doubling my damage. This is also where I finally become smart enough to equip Tempest Shield, a buff that enchants your shield with the power of storms, which lashes out to deal arcane lightning damage to attackers when you block them, or more importantly, gives me 19% chance to block spell damage, which gets doubled thanks to Glancing Blows, and immunity to shock, cause why not? It also makes our shield glow blue. Whoa. And now it's finally time to get the skill gem we've all been waiting for, Divine Retribution. I just need to collect some torn pages from the library over here, and there we go. Divine Retribution acquired. I also grabbed the Expert Retaliation support gem, which will just lower the Divine Retribution 5-second cooldown by a casual 40%. You know, no big deal. I link it with every support gem on my shopping list and head straight for the lab to see if this build actually works. Also, for your own safety, please forgive my fashion faux pas. So, Divine Retribution. It works just like Crushing Fist, except that instead of being a slam attack, it's a lightning-infused giant AoE spell. So, my cool mace I found is literally not increasing its damage whatsoever. I'll worry about that later. For now, I just want to face off with Azaro and get ascended. I've got good news and I've got bad news. The good news is that I am really tanky and can totally withstand everything Azaro has to throw at me. The bad news? I'm dealing less damage than Quinn.
He's kidding.
Demonstrating the patience of a saint, I managed to bring Emperor Azaro to his knees. I hit up that Ascension plaque and become the Juggernaut, grabbing the Unstoppable node for 10% move speed, stun immunity, and action speed plus movement speed cannot be modified to blah blah blah, which basically just means you can't be frozen. A great node for running around the campaign faster. Speaking of which, let's ascend the Tower of God and face off with Act 3's boss, Dominus. With a combination of both Divine Retribution and my trusty Crushing Fist, I get the job done more or less unscathed and move on to Act 4. Before diving into Act 4, I check the tree, still just a mess of block wheels and glancing blows. I splurge 1 chaos on a rare scepter so Divine Retribution actually, does damage, and after bulldozing the resto, I found a Stone of Lazwar. It's an old school amulet from an era when I had a social life, but here it's just a solid source of early spell block. Last but not least, Malachi. My damage is fine, but the real challenge is his AI. You'd think the dude yelling "Nightmare" would be eager to kill me, but he only attacks about once every Tuesday. Being a professional punching bag is harder work than I thought. In any case, all of his hearts eventually stop beating and he drops another unique that I'm happy to equip. Meginord's Girdle. It's got a lot of strength, 10% increased max life, and most importantly, it's an upgrade. On the way to the Overseer's Tower, I was looking for someone to hit me and GGG was more than happy to provide. My Juggernaut credentials have officially been revoked. Hopefully that was just a random fluke and not a sign of what's to come. I pushed through Act 5, finding a random Ancient Orb, which is now part of the core drop pool in case you didn't hear, and have a fun little one-on-one with Innocence. Thankfully, he didn't need any extra convincing to want to hit me. With the quartz literally on fire, I reached level 45 and put my passive point into this retaliation wheel down here, which has the Cruel Retorts notable, causing every 4th retaliation cast to have a guaranteed crit. Don't mind if I do. Next, I shield charge my way through the cathedral rooftops to reach my date with Destiny, or well, I hear he goes by Kitava these days. I was worried this would be another awkward encounter where I'd just be standing around waiting for things to hit me, and don't get me wrong, that is exactly what happened, but I managed to beat Kitava in under 2 minutes. Impressive, isn't it? Act 6 was more of the same. I ran into my first breach encounter, unlocking the whole Genesis tree thing, which I will not be using for the rest of this entire run, since I had more than my fill of breach last league. I get another Ancient Orb, these are worth like 6 chaos each by the way, and add the Vitality gem to my setup, giving me a bunch more life regen, which really helps with the whole come at me bro vibe I'm going for. Next, I ran into the Shabrutus duo. Honestly, one of the most pleasant encounters I've had so far. Unlike the previous pacifists, these two actually put in the work. Brutus loves slamming me, and I love being slammed. With those two easily dispatched, I decide to really lean into the whole lightning theme. I buy a new shield, one that can provide good defense with a solid 34% block chance, yes, but also some significant offense in the form of a +1 to level of all lightning spells and 57% increased lightning damage. This is gonna help out a lot. While clearing the beacon, I had a nice little impromptu chat with one of my OG supporters, Mr. Rumble Stuff. We were just catching up, with me pretending to feel bad for his crippling alcoholicism. You know, the usual. And, oh yeah, I guess I'm pretty tanky now, huh? Next up is the Brine King, a literal god of the deep, master of the tides, and apparently my therapist. Most players spend this fight dodging lightning bolts and running away from his mega slams. Me, I just got a big old hug. Act 7 barely even registered for me. I ran through the crypts, got a Chaos Orb, killed Maligaro no problem, found this new room in the Temple of Decay with a random corrupted unique, which gave me an edge of madness, and then I finished off Arakali in 5 hits. They were a little spread out. At this point, I grab another important keystone for the build, Iron Will. This makes it so that the bonus damage strength naturally gives us also applies to spell damage. Great for us since Divine Retribution is a spell, not an attack, and we have a lot of strength. This is also where I removed the Glancing Blows keystone because I actually have enough block chance without it to proc Divine Retribution pretty consistently, which is a really nice defensive boost since now whenever I block, I completely negate any incoming damage from the hit. Lastly, I should mention that I now have this pretty important block mastery that gives me life and mana on block. Really helpful for sustain. I pick up a unique chest piece, one I've never used before, but holy crap is it ever strong for the mid to late campaign. I am talking about Pragmatism. This is a cool body armor that gives all socketed skill gems a massive plus 12 to their levels, which is absolutely insane. However, for each skill gem you actually sock in there, they lose 2 levels. So in my case, I'll be throwing my Divine Retribution 4-link setup in there, resulting in only a plus 4 to all skills, but still, that's like 40% more damage for the cost of 1 chaos. And as if that wasn't good enough, I also buy a new Scepter, Nikta's Lantern. This right here is the perfect weapon for our current setup. It has a ton of fizz damage, a ton of fire damage, and the incredibly useful keystone Battle Mage. This makes it so that any damage our weapon has is also applied to our spell damage, which just gives us a whole boatload of damage. I fight the Moon Girl and her ex-Flameboy and get my second Ascension via the Labyrinth, grabbing the Unflinching node, which gives us a bunch of endurance charge generation and +1 to max charges. And in case you don't know, endurance charges basically just make us tankier. Next, I attempt to break up Solaris and Lunaris' fight, but things go sour quickly, and they both end up dead. Oops. In the Blood Aqueducts, I hit level 61 and grab the Prepared Response notable. I'm not entirely sure if the chance to make other skills usable actually works with Crushing Fist, but the nodes leading up to it slash my cooldowns, which definitely does. To celebrate, I stood in the middle of Garukan's Darude Sandstorm and face tanked the Depraved Trinity without moving a muscle. Nice. Over in Act 10, I let Avarius take out all of his frustrations on me, find a new unique amulet called Catal's Weeping, which seems way too big brain for my small brain jug over here, have a perfectly normal Azaro fight in the 3rd lab. Oh my god. And grab the Unyielding node, which makes my endurance charges even better, granting me increased damage and AoE per endurance charge. I also convert my Frostblink gem to a Frostblink of Wintry Blast over at the Divine Font, not because I want to use it myself, but rather because I can sell it for a quick 50 chaos really easily, and I can just grab another level 1 Frostblink gem for myself to replace it. With all that behind me, there's only one boss left for me to defeat once and for all. Kitava. Well, nothing special really happened. It was basically identical to our first fight, with the exception of one close call where I got hit for like 2k damage during the ad phase.
Tis but a scratch.
With the campaign taken care of and having still only died the one time with a couple close calls, this build is shaping up to be one of the tankiest builds I have ever played, especially as far as random builds go. Time to test it out in the revamped Endgame. Let's do this. Welcome to the Endgame. My mission is simple: obtain all 4 Void Stones. Thanks to this league's overhaul, the simple part just got complicated. To get these stones, I need to evict the Eater of Worlds, the Searing Exarch, the Shaper, the Elder, the Maven, and the Trio of Incarnations: Fear, Dread, and Neglect. It's a long road, and after the disaster in my last video, I'm treating this as my anime redemption arc. Time to take this tanky punching bag to the next level. So without wasting any time, I start mapping, progressing through the Atlas, and quickly decide to make use of those 50 or so Chaos Orbs I have laying around from selling the Frostlink gem on Agear Glow Up, Voice of the Storm for lucky lightning damage, and a Foulborn Magnate Belt for that sweet chance for triple damage. I push through the early tiers, reaching yellow maps, kill a random Omniphobia, and finally swap out the Pragmatism chest I've been using for a corrupted 6-link with a lot of life and armor. My 6-link setup is as follows: Divine Retribution linked with Expert Retaliation, Physical to Lightning, Lightning Penetration, Intensify, and Second Wind. I progress the Maven questline, running my first boss gauntlet pretty smoothly, find another Ancient Orb, these things drop like candy apparently, and unfortunately experience my second death to a random pack of monsters in a tier 9 map. I am only level 77, so maybe that has to do with it. Progress has genuinely been super smooth so far. The new Alice changes that replace the individual location-based maps for more generic tiered maps instead make the endgame so much more approachable and enjoyable in my opinion. I love the change. I find a trial of crippling debt, and considering I still haven't run the 4th lab for my final ascendancy, I make sure to run it. I run my first red map, having the closest call yet when fighting the double bosses. And now, after grabbing the Safeguard Notable up here, I'm essentially block capped as long as I've cast the retaliation skill in the last 4 seconds. Amazing. I then die to Kohama twice, and I learned that damage over time, like Ignite, is my biggest weakness. I don't have a solution for that right now, but hopefully I can work something out. I buy a new helmet to scale my damage even further. Ravenous Passion. This helmet makes it so that Rage grants me spell damage increases instead of attack damage, resulting in 30 more spell damage in most cases since I have a pretty decent max Rage uptime. Before I knew it, it was already time to face off with the worst boss fight in the game, Infinite Hunger. And yeah, on this punching bag build, the fight lived up to its reputation of being a serious struggle. I died on several occasions, be it to his slams or just running out of life flasks, and my damage is still so low compared to your average run-of-the-mill off-meta build. It took over 15 minutes to finally bring his unending HP down to 0, and this will live on in my memory as one of my worst fights with him of all time. In an attempt to slightly increase my damage, I make a simple gem swap. I replace the Intensify gem with Concentrated Effect. Yeah, I lose some AoE, but the unyielding node from being a Juggernaut really helps in that department, so the decrease in AoE is honestly not even noticeable. It's still basically screen wide, and Conc Effect gives me way more consistent DPS. And speaking of the lab, I got that offering to the goddess earlier and completely forgot to use it. I head in, run through the maze, and face off with Uber Azaro for the final time. I face tank all of his attacks, and finally I can get fully ascended, grabbing the Unbreakable node, which doubles the armor my chest piece provides and makes it so that incoming chaos damage can be reduced via armor a little bit. This tank just gets tankier. At this point, my Alice looks like this, and as you can see, I've really only explored the bottom left corner so far. And as far as I'm aware, that's where the Eater and Exarch are, so I'm focusing on it first, but I will have to explore the entire Atlas to get all 4 Void Stones. There's still plenty for me to do. I ID this perfectly rolled Lavianga Spirit, which sells for 32 Chaos, which I then use to buy a new shield with mana recovery on block, since I'm running out of mana constantly and I figure this is a solid solution. I grab a new keystone on the skill tree, something I probably should have considered earlier, Elemental Overload. It makes it so that any skill that has crit in the past 8 seconds will deal 40% more damage, with the trade-off that crits themselves don't deal any additional damage. My crit chance is pretty much nothing unless you factor in that the notable Cruel Retort makes every 4th retaliation skill crit automatically. So by combining the two, I can basically have 100% uptime on LE Overload as long as things are hitting me. I keep mapping, making progress on the Atlas, running into this thaumaturgical hourglass thing in a Mirage for the first and last time. I just think it looks cool, so I figured I'd point it out. And then by browsing some PoE ninja folks that are also playing Divine Retribution, on Gladiator however, I become aware of a new support gem that outclasses all others. Greater Spell Cascade. If you're familiar with Awakened Spell Cascade, this is more or less the same thing, but in case you're not, with Greater Spell Cascade linked to our Divine Retribution, now, whenever I cast it, 4 more smaller versions of it appear on all 4 sides of it, essentially making these giant overlapping zones of mass destruction. The AoE it provides is incredible, and my damage has shot up significantly, and it only cost me 25 Chaos. Amazing. I get my first T15 map, and then, in the same map, yes, my first Divine. Nice. This orb is worth 210 Chaos right now. Let's freaking go. I run that T15 next and meet Egan for the first time, the NPC that gives us the quest line to face off the Incarnation bosses. I am not looking forward to those, but at least I can make progress towards them whenever I feel like it, so that's good. Somewhere along the way, I get the Polaric Invitation, which lets me face off with the Black Star, and Wow, can I just say, this fight went so much better than the one of the Infinite Hunger, taking me only just over a minute to complete without any close calls whatsoever. This is more like it. After this, I realized that I'm not really taking full advantage of my insane endurance charge generation provided by the Juggernaut Ascendancy. So I start getting more max endurance charges on the tree and switch away from using Molten Shell to Immortal Call instead. It's a defensive skill that gets empowered by consuming endurance charges, making me take less fizz and elemental damage for a duration, and I can link it with cast when damage taken so that it automatically goes off whenever I need it. Then I remember to anoint my amulet with a cheap set of oils that gives me the Divine Judgment notable from the passive tree without having to actually path to it, granting me 50% more elemental damage. There is a better passive called No Forgiveness, which would be an excellent fit for the build, but it uses a black oil, a golden oil, and a prismatic oil, so it is way too expensive for me right now, even with that divine I just found. I run another Maven Witness boss invitation, socket in some jewels with Chaos Res, and have an extremely tough battle with Mini Cyrus after having started that questline with Egan. Well, tough maybe isn't the right word. Dreadfully long might be a bit more fitting. I had one extremely close call, and then several minutes later, once he had finally gotten down to 1% HP, well, that's disappointing. I was able to tank that move every other time. Oh well, I run back in and finish him off. I start speedrunning maps, just rushing through the packs of enemies, hunting the bosses down for Alice completion, and jumping out of there as soon as they're taken care of, which, well, some bosses take forever, like the goddess over here who kept freaking teleporting away from me. So annoying. I then pull a classic Schwingy move when I realize I forgot 2 free passive points from the campaign, so I go take care of those and put my points into Golem's Blood over by the Duelist for some life increase and of course life regen to keep my left globe topped up. I reach level 90, buy a 2120 Divine Retribution to replace the level 19 zero quality one I've been using up till now, for 3 chaos. God damn, I'm an idiot and should have gotten this so much sooner. My tooltip average damage went from 24k to 29k for 3 chaos. Oof. I make a few dozen chaos selling flasks that I just throw a bunch of alteration orbs at until they hit something half decent, and then use that money to buy a new shield. One that those of you who have been keeping up with the meta I'm sure are very familiar with. Wrathpith Globe. It lets you increase your spell damage and spell crit by just having tons of life, at the cost of making you sacrifice 10% of your life every time you cast a spell, which with my regen and life gained on block, ain't all that bad. Without making any other gear changes, the damage increase is rather slim, but with the right investment, I should be able to double or even triple my life total to really start seeing some much better damage and tankiness. I keep mapping with my new and improved setup, get my first Shaper Guardian map, that's great, I definitely need that in order to fight the Shaper and Elder later, and then get another fun drop in the form of a relatively expensive Domination Scarab. I do the final 10-way Maven invitation, getting some Crescent Splinters, which are apparently completely worthless. I have never seen that before. I get to 91 and finally get the Screaming Invitation, the boss key that will let me fight the Eater of Worlds, which would be great if I knew how to use it. Maybe I just have to run this last palace map and that'll give me access? I'm not sure. Sure enough, beating Dominus once more did the trick, and he dropped the Incandescent Invitation, which I can use to fight the Syrian Exarch right after. But first, let's face off with the Eater of Worlds. In my experience, this fight is often a frantic dance of avoiding tentacles and praying the orbs you need to collect are all clumped together. For me, it was a 4-minute spa treatment. No close calls, no worrying about getting one-shot by his lasers, just me and my new blue friend hanging out and getting to know each other. As for his drops, well, just a pair of shabby boots. After that relaxing fight, it's time to heat things up with the Syrian Exarch next. This was not quite as relaxing. When I'm actually fighting the guy, it's totally fine. It's the ball phase that really did me in. I'm genuinely curious, what do you guys usually do to survive his ball phase? I mean, sometimes I get lucky and manage to move in the right places and it works out, but probably 9 out of 10 times I end up in a situation with nowhere to go. I know totem builds tend to have it easy because you can just block the balls with your totems, but yeah, if you have tips, please let me and everyone else know in the comments. After 2 deaths, I was able to finish him off and was rewarded with the Eldritch Voidstone. Let's go! By socketing this guy into my Atlas, now whenever I run into Eater or Exarch altars in my maps, there's a 25% chance they'll have extra bonuses resulting in more loot. Definitely a nice upgrade. I get back to the grind, trying to get as much Atlas completion as I can, reaching level 92 and finding a second Divine Orb. I reached the 2 topmost corners of the Atlas, and I've got to be honest, these whole extra sections that pop up for the bosses are really confusing. Like, what is even going on here? I have a complete standoff with a soul-eatered Alira found in the Burial Chambers map, literally wasting away minutes of my life before she finally goes down. Find a Black Barya, the key that lets you face off with the newest boss that got added to the game, Mr. Saresh. This thing is worth 1 divine right now, and I could sell it, but I kinda want to save it to fight him myself. Like, I feel that's the right thing to do. At this point, I finally start investing into some actual life stacking gear to complement the Wrathpith Globe. First, I grab a Dissolution of the Flesh Jewel, which increases max life by a whopping 26% more, at the cost of removing energy shield and having this weird special effect where when you take damage, instead of it just dealing damage to your life pool, it actually reserves that life instead until you take no damage for 2 seconds straight. It definitely takes some getting used to. I also pick up a new weapon, the Dark Seer, costing me a whole divine because it has a +2 to all spell levels, but more importantly a +2 to max life per level, meaning this thing's giving me like 180 flat life. Awesome. I also grab a new body armor, another corrupt 6-link since that's kind of the easiest way to get armor pieces with the socket colors I need, but this one's got a ton of armor and resistances and crucially, no life. Since that means I can grab this life mastery on the tree that gives me 15% increased max life if there are no life modifiers on your chest piece. After swapping some points around on the tree and investing more into life, I'm now sitting pretty at 7,500 max life, or well, 7,499 to be exact. What is this, a sale on life? Anyways, feeling stronger than ever, it's time to work towards that second Voidstone. Time for my fight with the first of the incarnations, the Incarnation of Neglect. This went surprisingly well, only having one close call when I face tanked his giant AoE nuke that I really probably should have respected. With the first of the incarnations taken care of, I make progress towards the next one, hitting a bit of a snag when facing off with the Cardinal of Fear, who puts this insane ignite on me just as he's about to die. Damage over times and Dissolution of the Flesh do not mix well. I'm not exactly sure what the solution here is. I guess I need to get Ignite immunity somewhere, maybe on a flask, but I kinda just got lazy and accepted my fate whenever things got too hot. Like in this fight with the Incarnation of Fire. Or does that say Fear? This fight sucks. Like, it's not that he's hard, he's just annoying since his attacks are all super slow and half of them can't be blocked, so it's just a massive waiting game. Eventually, he did go down. On the way over to the third incarnation, I run some more maps and find our new most valuable drop, a Horde Scarab of Bloodlines worth 1.5 div, as well as another Screaming Invitation worth 80 C. Awesome. After selling both suckers, I'm now sitting pretty at over 400 chaos in my stash. I reach level 93 and then face off with the last and definitely the hardest of the trio, the Incarnation of Dread. This dude is tough, like damn. His lightning blasts are no joke, and I had one of the most insane close calls yet. 26 HP, 26! And as if this fight wasn't hard enough already, then this happened. Thankfully, when coming back, my progress was saved, but I did lose out on another portal, which really did matter because I keep dying to the same lightning blast move. I guess I'm having a hard time recognizing when he's about to do it, but yeah. He brings me down to my last portal and I have to be on my game to clutch it out. Which, after another 2 minutes of playing like my life is on the line, because it kind of is, I managed to pull off. Phew, I can breathe again. And for all my efforts, I'm rewarded with the Originator Voidstone. Hell yeah, we're halfway there. living on a prayer.
Oh, shut up.
I socket that bad boy into this Voidstone socket, and now bosses in my maps have a chance of dropping these new items called Astrolabes, as well as exceptional support items like our Greater Spell Echo that we bought earlier, which replaced Awakened Gems. I'll tell you right now, I literally did not find a single one of either of these for the rest of this run. Back to mapping I go, where I run into a very problematic boss, the Crimson Township guy. He does this massive fizz damage DOT that I have absolutely no way to deal with Dissolution of the Flesh equipped. So eventually, I decided to remove it just for this fight, and that actually did the trick. At this point, I discovered that I've been missing out on a really important piece of tech that is going to make this whole life stacking build feel so much better. A keystone called Eternal Youth. Without going into too much detail on how it works, it basically just makes your life recharge in the same way that Energy Shield would, but lowers your life regen. I try it out and holy shit, this feels so much better. Look at how my life just fills right back up without even using any flasks. This is fantastic. A few maps later, while in the middle of an ultimatum, I get an alert for a unique body armor I've been keeping my eye on. Another piece of the life stacking puzzle, the Apostate. I managed to snipe this bad boy for just 2 divines, which is freaking awesome. So what's so special about it? Well, it has this mod that reads, gain maximum life instead of maximum energy shield from equipped armor items, which means I can now start investing into flat energy shield on my gear and it'll actually give me maximum life instead. Amazing. 800 fusings and an unexpected wrist surgery later, I managed to 6-link it myself. I buy a whole set of new rare gear to gain life and energy shield, switch out my unbreakable ascendancy for untiring instead since the apostate has no armor on it at all, and after all is said and done, I now have over 12k life. Dudes, this is awesome. And don't forget, thanks to my Wrathpith Globe, all this life is also contributing to spell damage and spell crit, which, wait a second, I should probably spec out of Elemental Overload now, shouldn't I? So I do. I also buy the Sacrifice Support Gem, replacing Conk Effect finally because it adds a percentage of sacrifice life as flat chaos damage to our spells, which with this much life makes a massive difference. I run some more ultimatums, getting some new fancy schmancy catalysts in the Mirage world, and finally reach 100 out of 100 Atlas completion. Woo, what an ordeal. I buy a new belt, finally replacing that Foulborn magnet I've been using for what feels like forever. The Screams of the Desiccated. One with the you have the massive shrine effect while no flasks are active mod. This does mean I have to give up my flasks to actually benefit from it, but like, look at how much HP I have now. Nearly 15k. I blast through the Shaper Guardians to collect their fragments, leading me to the next big endgame trial, the Shaper himself. Of course, just my luck, I have to fight Malachi again. Please just hit me. This fight would have been real fun if it hadn't taken me 12 minutes to do. Jesus Christ, this build is not a bosser, but it is very tanky now. No close calls, just a long fight with an old senile guy. Next up, the Elder. Now this is more like it. 3 minutes alone with the Elder is all it took for my Divine Retribution to do its thing. And just like that, there's only one Voidstone left. Maven, I hope you're ready. I thought 26 HP against the Incarnation of Dread was a close call. May I present to you 1 HP for 11 seconds straight? What the actual hell, man? That is crazy. How did I survive that? I had a few more close calls and had to nail her famous memory game 6 times while in her final phase, but by God, I did it. Deathless even. Upon her death, she dropped the ceremonial Voidstone, completing our collection, and technically the goal for this run. However, there were 2 more bosses I really wanted to fight before calling it quits, because I know some of you watching are going to be like, come on man, how can you not get the 3rd ring slot? So, I buy an audience with the king and face off with the King of the Mists, the ritual pinnacle boss. Honestly, this fight was pretty easy. The hardest part by far was the following the wisps in the maze section, which always trips me up. But yeah, when he finally died, I was able to ascend to the Nameless bloodline, replacing that 4th Ascendancy node I had and instead grabbing the Unseen Hand, which straight up gives me an extra ring slot, which I fill up with a new ring I purchased with lots of life, putting me at 18.6k HP. Crazy. And like I said, there's still one more boss that I want to test the build out against. The newest one that got added to the game this patch, Mr. Saresh of the Black Barrier. What an absolute pushover. A big thank you to all channel members for supporting these videos directly. Hope you've been having fun in the new league. Be sure to let me know how you would have done things differently down in the comments, and remember to leave the video a like if you enjoyed it. I'll see you all in the next one.